Good evening, everyone. I hope you all are doing well and excited for an insightful evening ahead. It's a pleasure to have you all here with us. Tonight at Hack the Mountains, we are thrilled to bring you an event that promises to be both educational and inspiring. Today we have Akshay Prabhat Mishra as a speaker. Akshay is a GOLD MLSA, a two-time Microsoft Azure certified expert, and a Google Cloud Platform certified professional. He is not only a full stack developer, but also an organizer with the OCD and has contributed significantly to the tech community. His expertise in a cloud computing and his commitment to open source initiatives are truly remarkable. Tonight, he is here to take us on a journey through the digital realm of Git and GitHub, sharing his valuable insight and knowledge. Please join me in a giving a warm virtual welcome to Akshay. The stage is all yours, Akshay.
Thank you, Mansi, for such a wonderful introduction. I'll be giving you all an introduction to how you can actually use Git, how you can use GitHub, and what is open source, what version control is, and how you can work it out, all of this, and get started as soon as we end this call. Thank you. So let me show my slides. Yeah. So let's go ahead. As a prerequisite for this session, I expect all of you, for whoever views this, to have a GitHub account. That's optional because you can make it after the session as well. So let's have a look at the next screen. Yeah. So today we'll be learning what are the basics of Git and GitHub, how you can make a repo, how you can create a branch, how you can commit changes to that branch, how you can make a pull request, how you can merge that, and how you can delete a branch. We'll be getting through all of this. At first, I'll be starting with a few theoretical concepts. I'll be telling you all what they are, the things, the terms. I'll be familiarizing you with the terminology. And after that, I'll be showing you a demo using which you can actually perform it yourself at your homes and wherever you want. So yeah. Now, before we actually move on to Git and GitHub, we need to understand what is open source. GitHub is sort of the platform which is being used for all open source activities these days. Well, there are other platforms as well, but GitHub is the most prominent one. So many of you must have seen this meme before. Criminals can't use your secret exploits. A criminal can't use secret exploits in your code if your code isn't secret. Well, if you are working on an open source code, what usually happens is there are hundreds and millions of developers out there who are there to check the vulnerabilities in your code, who are there to correct your code or maybe point out the errors in it whenever the errors show up. So it's pretty much, in my terms, the most secure way to develop. Now, what is a version control system? VCS. We've all heard of it at some or the other point in our career. I'll move on to the next slide and let you all know. So, have you ever made a project, maybe for college, maybe for your office, or maybe for your school? Well, we have all used that nomenclature. Project 1, Project 2, Project Final, Project Final Final, Project Final for real, project with many T's. We've all done that. We've been there. I have been there. Do you see a problem with this nomenclature, with this way of storing files? Well, every time you make a change, you make a new save file. Now, since there is another save file, it would occupy the same amount of space, maybe more, maybe less, as the previous one did. And as you add on more and more files, these sizes, they get stacked up and they add on to a very, very huge number. Let's say you start with a file of 2 GB, it grows on, right? So you need a certain type of system which would help you to actually minimize these sizes, plus do some sort of version controlling. When we say version controlling, what we mean is, let's say if I'm working on an application, if there's an error in that application, I can, if I'm using some kind of version controlling, then I can simply revert to the point where the code seemed to be working. Okay, Git is one such software or one such SVN that people use. What happens when you use Git is that Git stores these changes. It does not stores the entire file. It stores all those changes. Let's say if you make 3 lines, if you add 3 lines to your code, if you subtract 2 lines from that code, it keeps a track of all those changes. And it basically just reduces the files, plus it gives you an opportunity to maybe revert back to a file state if you mess it up later on in your development phase. Okay, so that's version controlling. Git, yeah. Git is a powerful version control system that allows you to track changes, as I've said before. You can work with your teammates. You can create multiple branches. You can do all sorts of things using Git. All right. So the key features is there's a branching workflow, the performance is fast, and the history is local. Git basically works on your system. So you can even easily switch between branches. Now, what are branches? I'll be telling you more about these as we move further into the presentation. Yeah. Now GitHub. Well, GitHub is basically the platform. Git is installed locally on your system, and everything on Git happens locally. GitHub is sort of doing the very same thing, but remotely. GitHub is a platform where people come in from all over the world to collaborate, to build something, and to keep the version control going on. So let's just read more about it. Well, GitHub basically offers you some sort of user-friendly interface wherein you can interact, where you can collaborate on different projects, where you can work on it, where you can point out maybe errors in the others' applications. Yeah, so the main features are GitHub provides you with a repository hosting. You can host your project anytime you want, anywhere you want. It will be there irrespective of your machine. You can simply log on to your machine, do a Git clone. How to do Git clone, we'll see that later. You can simply Git clone and start performing all of your changes. You can have pull requests. Yeah, we'll see it later. Issue tracking. There's an issue tracking, as I mentioned earlier. If there's an issue, you can track it. You can say, yeah, this issue is assigned to this person. He's working on it. She is working on it. They are working on it. They'll fix it and as they fix it, we'll integrate those features in our page, in our web page, in our application, in our code base. Okay. So branches. I have mentioned it before. What are branches? Well, to create a branch is like to create another point of reference to a saved state of the code. Let's say I have a certain code which is in production. Okay. So what I'll do is, if I want to change, make a change to that code, I won't be making the changes directly to the production. Because if I do a change and if something goes bad somewhere in between some of the lines, then my entire production will go down. So what I'll do is I'll rather create a branch from the state where the code seemed to work. Okay. And then I'll make the changes in those branch. I'll commit those changes. I'll submit a pull request, and then maybe merge those changes in the production as after all the testing and every single other phase is complete. There are a lot of keywords mentioned here on this page: to submit a pull request, to discuss proposed changes, to merge. We'll talk about it quite soon, and we'll have a hands-on as well. So yeah. Now, what is a commit? You've seen a commit in the previous slide. So commit is basically like telling Git, it's there on Git, and as you push your code to GitHub, it will be seen on GitHub as well. It is like telling your code, yeah, I've done some changes. Now you can save these changes and you can name them so and so. Okay. And at any point, I can simply go back to those commits if I feel that something is wrong. There is a commit history, which basically just keeps a record of where all those changes were made. You do have to save them though, because if you don't, then what would happen is you might just lose some of your important code. So if you're coding, if you think you are at a substantial stage wherein you can save all the changes, it's better that you commit your code. We've had these memes from ages that you have to commit your code, you have to push it, and then you have to leave a building if there's a fire. So yeah. Um, Now, what is a pull request? Let's say you've been working on a project. There's a certain point from where you want to make a change. You create a branch. You make changes. You commit those changes, and now you wish to merge those changes to uh, to the main branch, to the branch which is in production, to the branch which is actually being used by the people out there. So what you'll do is you'll create a pull request from your current branch to that branch, and then once the pull gets merged, your code will be seen everywhere. That is a pull request. A pull request is basically a mechanism used to send signals that the commits from one branch are ready to be merged into another branch. Now, cloning and forking. Well, I've talked about how you can go ahead and contribute to a code. I've talked about this process. What I did not talk about was how you can begin that process. Well, let's say we've been talking for the past few minutes about open source, right? Let's say there's a project out there to which you wish to contribute. Um, we can name any of the open source projects. For now, let's call it FUU. Okay, foo. Let's call it that. All right. So you wish to contribute to foo. What you'll do is you'll fork that code. You'll fork that. Forking, I'll show you in the demo what forking actually is, how it works. Forking basically means someone out there is working on a certain piece of code. You wish to work on that as well. So you create a copy of that code in your GitHub profile. That is forking. Now, cloning is something entirely different. Forking is totally remote. When you clone something, when you clone a repository, what happens is a copy of that repository gets initiated inside your own system. You can start coding into that. That's cloning. Okay. Uh, there's these whole points. You can either take a screenshot or maybe come back to this point to refer to them. Okay. Now, getting started with Git and GitHub. Now, I'll open my console. I'll share my screen, and I'll let you know how you can actually access GitHub, how you can create a repository, how you can make changes to those to the repository, and how you can push it to your profile to GitHub, and how you can ask other developers to contribute to it. Okay, so let's get started. Let's actually move on to the demo. So yeah, so my screen is visible now. As you can see, this is my GitHub profile. I've made some few changes in here. I've made a README. You can do that as well. But initially, you have to create a GitHub account. How you can do that? You can. I'll sign out. Okay. I'll just sign out. All you have to do is come to whenever you load github.com, you will see this page. Okay, you have to go to sign up. There are a few steps that you have to follow, and then you'll be ready to proceed with it. So there are all of these prompts and everything. Okay, uh, I'll just sign in because I've already created my account. It exists. So once you're through with that process, what you can do is you can create your own repository. This is how you create a new repository. You have to click on this plus and then hit new repository. Okay. Now for now, for the sake of this meeting, I'll just choose a random name which GitHub suggested me. Yeah, it does that sometimes. I'll just choose a description workshop. I'll make the repository public so that you all can refer it to later. I'll add a README file for sure. Okay. Now this branch will be set on master. Okay, doesn't matter. Let me create repository. So as you can see, the repository has been created. It has the name here because I said create a README, so that's why it has created a README already. There's this name, there's the description. Now, let's start making some changes to this repository. Let's get into it. Now, firstly, what I'll do is I'll create a new branch. You can create a new branch is that you can click on this drop down icon. You can find or create a branch from here. I'll just create a new branch. I'll call it test. Yeah, let's call it testing. Now create a branch testing from master. Now what it essentially did, me converting a new creating a new branch from master, what it did is it basically just took the current state of the branch master, and copied it and created a new branch named testing. Okay, so we have a branch named master which contains pretty much the same content which we see in testing. Okay, so next I'll just copy this certain link. Now before I do all of this, I need to make sure that I have Git installed on my system. Okay, so for that you can simply go ahead, pop up your terminal up. I'm using VS Code. You can do this in your PowerShell, in your terminal, in your whichever you use, in your VOP, in your Hyperfile. Some people use Hyper. It's taking some time to load. Yeah, it loaded up. So I'm gonna write Git, and yeah. So if you write Git, if you type in Git and you hit return, you'll see the methods. If you see these methods, it means Git has already been installed on your system. If you do not see all of these methods, all of the usage standards, if you don't see these, it basically just means that you don't have Git on your system. Now, in order for you to install Git, you'll have to do either of the two things. Now, it totally depends on your version on your PC or on your operating system, that which software you use. I usually just go ahead and look it up. Uh, the best system that I've used on Windows, it has been Git Bash. Okay, so I've been using Git Bash for quite some time now in my Windows PC. For my Mac, there's an inbuilt install. For those who are running Mac, you can go ahead and you can do brew install Git. This would simply install Git. I do already have it on my system, so I'm not going to do it. But you can run this command if you're running a Mac or maybe Linux, then this would probably work. Or else you can install Git SVM from this website. If you download for Mac, you can download it for Linux, you can download it for Windows. It basically just allows Git for your to run on your PC. It's a really great tool. It provides you with a command line interface that you can use, and I would suggest, if you're learning, if you're quite a beginner, you can use this as well. Now there's another application that I suggest for GitHub. That's GitHub Desktop. Now Git is something that runs locally, but GitHub is something that's there on the website, on the web page, on remote. So it GitHub Desktop basically provides you a user interface to actually interact with your GitHub and perform Git commands. You can commit, you can add different files, you can commit them, you can push them to your code base, you can create a pull request. All of such things are done using GitHub Desktop. It's quite good if you are a beginner, but as you proceed further, as you advance, you will find that there are many things that you can do with the command line interface that are not possible in GitHub Desktop. So that's why I highly recommend starting out with the command line interface instead of directly hopping on to GitHub Desktop. Okay, so let's just go ahead. Since I already have Git installed, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you one of the few things that I mentioned earlier. That is cloning. Okay, let me copy this code. Now, as you can see, I hit this icon, you'll see that prompt is shown here that it says copy. So now that this code has been copied, what I'll do is I'll move on to my terminal and I'll start typing. I think it's visible, but still I'm going to increase the size. Yeah. So I'm going to type git clone and I'll paste the link of my repository here, the thing I copied from here. All right. Let me hit return. So as you can see, the repository has been cloned. It is being cloned as we speak. Let's wait for, let's give it a few seconds. Yeah. So this Git repository, this GitHub repository has been cloned onto our systems now. Now, if I go onto the Explorer, you can see Legendary Octo Garbanzo is here now. There's the README file that we created. Now, the READMEs, they have their own format. It's Markdown. So Markdown has its own way, own style of writing. You can, I've got many extensions installed. That's why I'm able to see it. I think it's there in VS Code natively as well. But if it's not, you can go ahead and install an extension named, I think it's Markdown Preview. Markdown Preview. Let's look it up. Again, nothing shows. Yeah. So you can install this extension. It's quite good. It gives you a basic preview of all your Markdown code. Since I already have one, I'm going to use this. You can install it if you don't, or you can update your VS Code. I think it would probably show you the magnifying, this file icon with the magnifying glass. You can open it to preview these the Markdown. So if I make any changes here, let's say if I add a bullet point, what it's going to do is, yeah. So, okay, this is supposed to be like this, right? So as you can see, a bullet point has been added. Create a new repository on GitHub to avoid errors. Do not initialize the new repository with README. You can add the files. Okay, so this is something I'm going to talk about later, what this actually means, and why this thing was suggested to me by my code completer. I'm using GitHub Copilot, by the way. It actually comes with GitHub Student Developer Pack. You can go ahead and install it whenever you wish. It gives you awesome suggestions for your code. You can see right. It's the code is automatically being completed. So yeah, it's quite great. So let me just clear this code. Yeah. So as you can see, the code has been cleared now. It's not showing up in the preview. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to change my directory. Now what's a directory? Well, we name the folders which are there on GitHub repositories. Like in a repository, there can be multiple directories. A directory is basically the computer sciencey way of saying a folder. Okay. So I'm going to move on to the legendary something repository directory. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to hit ls. Ls is basically like a replacement for Windows dir, which basically just lists all the files and folders that are stored in here. If I wish to show all the hidden files that are stored in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do ls-a. So what ls-a does is it shows me a list of hidden files as well. So before let's move into this legendary Octo Garbanzo folder, right? So I'm going to do a cd. Cd is essentially just changing the directory, and I just hit tab. Tab completes the code, and I'm into the directory of legendary Octo Garbanzo. Here I can do all my git commands. Now as you can see, as of now I'm on the branch master. I've installed the spaceship prompt, which gives me a clean look at the branches that I'm at right now. Now, I don't want to push my code to master, because master is the branch which stores the original state. What I wish to do is I wish to push my code to testing. So how I'm going to accomplish that? For that, we have this very amazing command, right? Git checkout and the branch name. The branch is testing, right? So git checkout testing. Now what this command essentially does is it just switches my branch to testing. See, it has been changed to testing. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to commit this change, the change that I did here, onto the branch testing and not to master, because master was originally the name of my initial state. I don't wish to lose my initial state. Well, if I do, just in case, we can obviously go back. We can obviously do a revert and go back to the commit that we did earlier. But as of now, because for the time being, what I'm considering is that my master branch is my production. I don't wish to make changes onto my production branch that I would regret later. So what I've done is I've created another branch named testing. I've switched to testing branch using the command checkout. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to check the status. I'm going to check the status. So once I run the git status command, what it shows me is that there is one file that has been modified. Its name is readme, and if you wish, you can make these changes. Make the changes you have done to the readme. Um, you can commit them basically. So I can do. There's this another way to do this as well. You can, if you're using VS Code, it offers you an option to do source control. Source control is another amazing way, apart from GitHub Desktop, to actually interact with your GitHub account. All you have to do is go ahead and sign in onto GitHub. I think, yeah, from here you can log in to your GitHub, and then you'll be able to do source control from here as well. So I'm going to do both of these. I'm going to use both of these as of now, and you'll see how these function, right? So let's get started. Let's get ahead. Let's do git add. Now git add command basically just starts tracking all those files. Like a readme file has been modified, but it is not being tracked as of yet. The changes that are made in this file, the earlier changes, they are not being stored anywhere. So what I'm going to have to do is I have to add the readme. So I'll do, yeah, that works. So I'll do git add readme.md. So once I hit enter, it basically just starts tracking all those changes. It stages them. It does not commit them, but it stages them. It starts tracking them. Okay. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to commit this change. How I'll accomplish that? I'll do git commit minus m. Minus m is a flag which is used for committing purposes. I think it's for single line commits. If you don't write minus m, it basically just opens a Vim editor wherein you have to write all those changes. You have to save them. It's a lot of work. So if you're not into Vim, if you don't know how to actually use a command line based text editor, then I would rather suggest that you use minus m. I'm going to call this commit initial commit. Now, this thing, it's the format of how you have to commit the code is fixed. Now, you can definitely change the message which is in here, but it is a usual preference that you name the first commit initial commit. Okay, it's even mentioned in the documentations as well. So let me hit enter. As you can see, all of these changes that I did, like I added another point here, right? So it has been committed to the branch testing. But let me go back to my GitHub channel, GitHub account. I'm in the branch testing, right? I'm going to refresh the page. As you can see, the changes that I made in here are not live here yet. So why aren't they being pushed to the code? Well, the reason for that is once you commit a code, you can make any number of commits, right? But once you commit the code, what you're basically just doing is telling your version control that yes, I made these changes. Now I wish to save these changes. Now all of these changes, as I mentioned earlier, since GitHub works locally, Git works locally on your own system, all these changes are being committed locally. Now, if you wish to make these changes onto this branch, and if you wish these changes to be reflected here, what you're going to have to do is you'll have to push them. Okay, so there's this very specific, very awesome command that does that. It is git push minus u. U is for upstream. It sets the current commit to upstream. You don't have to think much about it. You can use minus u. You can, if you wish to. I use it. It's my personal preference. You can do git push minus u origin. Let's just check the name of the remote, right? Git remote minus u. So what this command essentially does is, I'll move on to the push command later, but I'll have to tell you what git remote is. So as of now, git is working on my system locally, right? But there needs to be a link which has to be established in order for my code to actually be connected to the code which is there on GitHub, which is available remotely, right? So for that, there exists a certain feature which is adding remotes to your file. You can add, you can push these changes to any number of repos. For that, all you have to do is just switch the remote, right? So the name of this remote, the current remote, is origin. Okay. So if I write the push command, I'm gonna have to mention the name of this remote. So it is origin, origin. All right. Git push minus u origin. Now the next thing I have to do is specify the branch to which I wish to make these changes published. As of now, I'm working on the testing branch, but Git does not. Git knows that, but GitHub doesn't. So if I wish to push these changes, I'll have to specifically. I have to explicitly mention testing here. Okay. Now once I hit enter, git push minus u origin testing. Let's see what happened on my GitHub once the the control comes back here. Okay, so now that we have the control of the command line, let's go back to the repository. As you can see, nothing showed up, but testing it says testing had recent pushes less than a minute ago. Let's refresh the page to see if testing actually had any changes or not. See, the change that I did is now up here. So this is how you can actually push your code to GitHub. The three steps, the three heavenly steps that help you to push your code to GitHub are git add readme, because I'm pushing readme. They are git add, git commit, and git push. These are the three changes. These are the three commands that you need to know if you wish to start getting into the space of Git and GitHub, into the open source space, because these are the commands that will help you to push your code onto GitHub. So what's next? Now let's check the initial state, the master branch that we had earlier, and let's see if these changes are being reflected over there, because I was working on the testing branch, right? I do not want these changes to be there in my production. As you can see, it's not there. It's only there in the testing branch. Now this is how you actually maintain a code base. You actually keep a code base in production and work on it side by side. Let's say I'm working on a website, I've developed it, I've published it, it's out there, I've hosted it somewhere using some provider, and people are actually using it. Now if I make a change, I don't wish to make all those changes public, right? Because you've all heard before an app is released, it goes through alpha testing, it goes through beta testing, then there's a public beta release, then the product is released for public, right? So how you can do that? Branches is the way to go. You can have multiple branches in here. You can work through them, right? So now that now let's say I've made all these changes, I have tested them, I'm through with them. Now what I wish to do is make all those changes available in production. If I'm working on a certain XYZ app, I wish for the changes that I did to be published and seen to everyone who actually uses that app. How I'm going to do that? I'll have to create a pull request. That's how you create a pull request. That is basically just merging two different branches. Now there's a different way of working with pull request as well. I'll right now, as of now, we are actually just merging two branches, right? But if let's say if we were working on someone else's project, if we were working on an open source project, and we have forked it, we have created a branch, we have made the changes, we have committed those changes, we have pushed those changes. Now we wish to merge those changes in that XYZ's person's repository. What we would have to do is we would have to create a pull request there as well. How we'll do that, I'll tell you all just in a few moments. Now, before that, I'll just create a pull request. You can name this is basically just naming the title, giving the pull request your title. I'll call it what it was earlier. Initial commit. Let's put on a few comments. I'll say initial. Okay, no. Let's name it comment in caps. COMMENT. Yeah. Let's create a pull request. Now, this is the worst way to make a comment. To make yeah, we call these comments, not commits, comments, like we have on Facebook and Instagram, comments. Now, this is the worst way to create a comment. This is the worst way to create a pull request. Whenever you are creating a pull request, make sure your requests are meaningful. Make sure the message that you're giving onto your commits, the thing you're writing after -m, these are meaningful. Because if you're just saying added file, added this, added that, it won't make any sense, right? If you're working on tens and hundreds of files, and if you commit them all at once, and if you name that commit a single word, how would a person who's out there somewhere sitting in UK accessing working on the same project with you will know that what changes you made? He'll have to go through the entire code base, right? You don't want that. You don't want the other person to actually go through all of your code base in order for them to realize the changes that you've actually made to the code. So be mindful of that. Make meaningful commits. Okay, give meaningful commit messages. Now, once I've created a pull request, since I am the owner of this repository and since I am merging these repos, I am getting the button to merge those repos as well. Usually what happens is, if it would have been the repository of someone else, which I'll show you later, uh, the change that I made here would essentially just had to go through all sorts of reviews. Okay, so there are reviews, right? People can write comment, people can write hello, hi, and whatever, whatnot. People can say you did something wrong in code line. You did something wrong in L22 in file. Let's call it L22 in file readme.md. You did something wrong here. Okay, there the pull request goes through these entire series of comments, and after all those comments, after all those reviews, what happens is, if you've done like if your changes are good, they'll probably get merged just like this. Now, once the owner hits merge pull request, he'll have to name the merge. He'll have to name. He'll have to give the description. They'll have to give a description. They'll have to select an email ID, which I'll have to do, and they'll confirm the merge. Now, once the merge is complete, right, it gives you an option to delete the branch that you created initially, because all those changes have already been merged. So what use is your branch now? Well, let's say if you're working on a prolonged project that requires you to have multiple branches, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, and you wish to work on those branches simultaneously, if you wish to uh, keep making pull requests and then continue working on those branches, then you won't be pressing this button here. But since I would be creating new branches now, I would simply delete the old branch, the testing branch, because let me tell you why. Because the changes have already been merged. The master branch has already been is already reflecting all those changes that I did in the testing branch, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to delete the testing branch. Now, once I delete the testing branch, I do get the restore branch button for a few minutes. But if once I leave this page, this button will be gone. Now, let me refresh the page of this repository. So as you can see here, there's no testing branch anymore. So that means the branch has been deleted. Okay. So as of now, let's recall whatever you learned till now. I taught you what version control system is, a VCS. Then I told you about how Git works, what Git is. Git is basically the way of maintaining or having a version control system locally on your system. What GitHub is there are more than 50 million developers out there on GitHub that actually look out for code of each other, um, to point out vulnerabilities, to raise issues. I'll move on to issues. I'll show it next. Then I moved on to how you can actually implement, creating a repository, making changes to it. Now, this point, I should rather explain the point. It says, create a new repository on GitHub to avoid errors. Do not initialize the repository with README, license, or git ignore files. Well, see, let's say I have a code base locally, right? I made I'll have to do a whole lot of thing. Before I do that, I'll have to remove. Let's do cd dot dot. Let's make a change here, right? Let's create some new folder, mkdir. Let's create a new folder named project in here. You'll see project being created here, right? So the next thing I'll do is I'll maybe touch a new file, index.html. What I'll do next is I'll move on to the HTML file that I've created. I'll write maybe some kind of code in here. Okay, let me close this preview. Um, this code has been generated by a boilerplate snippet, so you don't have to worry about it. Just type exclamation mark in VS Code and hit enter. This code will be there in front of you. Okay. Now let's add some h1 tags. Let's say hello, and then let's add lorem ipsum, and then let's add another lorem ipsum, then add another lorem ipsum, and then do a break, a line break. This is the worst way to do it, though. Please don't code like this. Then let's add another lorem ipsum, and let's just do another heading, h2 world. Okay, so I'm going to save it now, and I'll see a live preview of this over here. Hitting the live preview button, it always works, right? So hello world is now, as you can see, lorem is being sandwiched between hello and world. Now, what I'll do next is I would want to publish these changes onto GitHub. But since this repository is not a part of GitHub, like I have not cloned it from GitHub, I have not forked it from anywhere, I have initiated it, and I have already created an index.html. Let's see what happens if I wish to, like if I create a new repository, if I initiate the repository like I did earlier. I'll just choose another name, laughing octo something. I'll write a description. I'll create a README. Okay, and then I'll create a repository. There'll be an error. You'll see it, and let's find. Let's copy this code and let's talk more about it. Okay, I'll move on to the folder project first. cd project. Here I am inside my project folder. Now, since Git is installed locally on my system, I can actually perform Git actions without involving GitHub at all. Okay, I'll just simply run the command git init. What this command does is it initializes an empty Git repository in this folder. It basically just create a .git in your current directory. If I ls-a, as I told earlier, ls is basically for listing all the files in here, minus files and folders, and minus a is for listing all the hidden files and folders. So .git is here. Anything that begins with a dot is essentially a hidden folder. That's why you don't see it here. Now, in project, we have a .git. Why is it not showing me index.html? Is this not in project? Okay, I moved it to project folder. It was created inside the parent directory and not inside the project folder. Now I'll hit my ls again. Yeah, you can see index.html. Now that I've made a change, now that I've moved index.html into the project folder, what I'll see is if I do git status, I'll see untracked files. Since this file is not being tracked as of now, I see that it basically just reflect that thing. I can use the source control given by GitHub now. Let me just drag a few things around. Yeah, so I'll add this change. Just see how easy it is. I'll commit this change. Okay, let's call this initial commit because it's a different GitHub repository. It's not the same as what we did earlier. It's not legendary Octogar Zabano. It's project, right? So let's call it initial commit. And let's commit this. Now this has been committed, but the branch has not been published. It's okay. So once you create a repository on Git, it's named the default repository, the default directory in Git is named, the default branch is named master. But the default branch on GitHub, since I'm initializing it with README, it's naming master. Otherwise, had it been empty, it would have named it main. Okay. Now I've copied this code. What I'll do is there's another way to actually connect your two projects, right? That is git remote add. Okay, git clone is basically just creating a copy of the remote repository onto your system. Git remote add is adding another remote that points out to some repository from that points to some repository out there on GitHub from your current directory. Okay, so I'll do a git remote add origin. Since origin is the name I would like to give that remote, git remote add origin, and then I'll paste the link I copied from there and I'll hit enter. Okay, now that I've hit enter, this exists now. Okay, now if I do git remote -v, it shows that this link, this repository is the remote branch that I have that's there on GitHub. Now, if now that I've committed those changes using the Git, what I'll do next is I'll push those changes. Git push -u origin master. Since the name of the branch, the current branch and the branch on here is master. Now, an error will occur. See, it has been rejected. Why? Because these branches, they have a divergent history. There's another term for this as well, but it essentially just means that the changes in here have not been pulled into my current Git repository. Now, if I do a Git pull as well, I'll do a Git pull and then I'll do a Git pull origin main. I'll do a git pull origin main master. I'll hit enter. Even now, it will show me all of these errors and everything. So that's why it is the usual recommendation that you never do something like this. Okay. So to avoid any errors, it's recommended that you do not initialize your GitHub repository with a README file. What would work better is, let me go back, let me just delete the current folder and go back here, cd dot, and let's delete this project. No, why are we deleting this? I'll simply do a git rmrf cd project, and then I'll do a okay. This is just like deleting any kind of directory. This command is a Linux command. It works for that. All right. So now that you've seen this error, now that you've seen the reason why we do not initialize a repository with a README, I'll initialize a repository. I'll create a public repository and I'll do nothing else. Like, I won't be taking all these options. I won't be giving a description. I won't be adding a README. I won't be adding any kind of template or a license. I'll do these things later locally. Let's name this branch Stunning Guacamole. Let's create this repository. Okay, now once you initialize an empty repository, GitHub gives you all these awesome lines of code that you can actually use to add the code that you can actually use to connect those two branches. So as you can see here, it says git init, it says git add readme, it says git commit. All those changes that I've mentioned earlier, they are being reflected here. They are you can actually see those things. Okay, so GitHub actually renamed their default branch to master and not main. Yeah, that's great. Now let me run all of this code, right? I'll just move on to the project folder. It is here. I'll copy all of these. Okay, I'll copy the git init. I'll paste it here. I'll enter it. As you can see, it has initialized an empty git repository. Um, let's wait for it to come back. Okay, I'll do a git add readme. Sure. Okay, no, I have to run this command first. Let's do this. Let's hit enter. Now, what this initially does is it creates a new file named readme.md, and then it puts this text into that file. So if I open readme, you can see stunning guacamole is there. Yeah. So then I'll do git add readme. Let me just like uh, copy all of these at once and hit enter. Let's see what happens then. Let's hit enter. Okay. So yeah, it committed, then it even changed the branch to main. Now git branch -m command is another command to change the name of your branch. All right. Some people use git checkout, some people use git branch -m. They do have different functionalities, but they essentially just perform the similar kinds of functions. Now I'll do a git remote add. All right, I did this earlier as well. I'll do a git remote add origin. I'll hit enter, and then yeah, I'll wait for it. So now that this has been added, I can check the remote git by hitting the git remote -v command. As you can see, it is stunning guacamole is here now. Now I'll run on the next command, which is git push -u origin master. Earlier it gave me an error. Earlier running this command gave me an error. Okay, let's see what happens if I run this command now. Yeah, so the code has been pushed to GitHub now. Now, once I refresh this page, you can see stunning guacamole is here. And that's how, my friends, you publish something to your Git repository. You publish your page onto GitHub. Now, once your code is on GitHub, you can do all sorts of things. You can go on to the settings. You can go on to maybe, where's that? You can go on to pages. You can deploy from a branch. You can, yeah, you can select your branch. You can save it, and you can have your own page. That's that's how it works. It's quite simple. If I go on to code and if I check, it was a basic thing you learn as you proceed. It's getting built as of now. Okay, now we've seen how you can create a repository, how you can make changes to it, how you can commit those changes, how you can push those changes, how you can work with different branches, how you can delete a branch. Let's have a look at how you can actually work on someone else's code. Let's say a teammate of yours is working on a code for HTM, and then you actually wish to fork their code and you want to make changes to that code. How you'll do that? What's the best practices? What are the best practices? Okay, I'll move on to the last slide. I think I'll have to go to the last slide. Yeah, open source version control. What's Git? Understanding Git, features of Git. I have to do that time and again because I lose track of what I'm saying usually. Okay, so the best practices for Git and GitHub: commit regularly. If you're working on a code base, it's better that you commit regularly, or else at the end of the day, what you'd be doing is you'd be pushing a lot of code base in a single commit. You don't want that. You don't want multiple changes across multiple files committed all at once, and then all of your teammates, all of your colleagues uh, would have to actually go through all that code and have to find themselves, find what changes you made themselves. So you don't want that. So it's better that you commit regularly. It's better that you it's preferred that you write meaningful commit messages. Using branches, it's really good. If you're adding a new feature, create a new branch and then create a pull request to the main branch, to the master branch, to the branch which is in production, to introduce those new changes in production. Yeah. um, Now, how you can code in someone else's repository? That's one of the main things, right? Let's see if this is deployed yet. Okay, yeah, there's a deployment. Now, if I head on to uh, the commit and wait, where's the deployment though? Anyways, this code, it has been deployed. It runs at stunning guacamole, and as you can see, my README, it's visible on this link. If you go onto this link, if you head on here, you'll find that stunning guacamole is there. You can commit, you can make changes to my current repository and publish them. I'll merge those changes, and you'll see the changes that you did here. So how awesome is it, right? Your change is going live. Uh, that's how you do it. GitHub pages is a really good thing. I'll tell you how you can do that at the end of my slides, at the end of my presentation. I think I have 5 to 10 more minutes for that. Before that, let's move on to someone else's code. Let's make a change to someone else's code. I'll go to my home page. Okay, this is how GitHub looks when you open it. If you've been logged in and you open github.com, you'll be led on to the GitHub dashboard. From there, you can select, go through all of these pages. You can go through all of these changes. You can. It's better that you search for some or the other code if you wish to contribute to open source, right? So I've been seeing this all over the place. So let's move on to the Coolify directory, right? Is more to Coolify. Now, if I wish to contribute to this repository, if I wish to be one of these 58 contributors, all I'll have to do is I'll have to fork this repository. Let's fork it. I'll have to create a fork. Now, Coolify, the name is available in my list of repositories. So I'll copy the main branch only, and then I'll create a fork. Copying all the other branches works as well, but it's preferred not to do so, because you won't be able to keep a track of all those branches. So it's preferred that you only copy the main branch, right? Now, let's say if you've copied the branch, but someone has made a change on that branch, and it's the changes that they do in the remote branch, in the other person's branch, they won't get reflected here unless you sync that fork. Okay. So since I just made this fork, it is not behind the upstream. There are no other changes that are being made on this repository, right? Now, if I wish to make a change onto this, and I wish to make it, it's basically just open source contribution. If I wish to do that, how I'll actually do it is by copying this code. I'll make it a bit faster because I've already covered all of the basics, right? So I'll create a new folder. Let's make it out of it. Let's create a new folder here, and let's name it hello. Let's switch on to hello, and let's initialize an empty Git repository here. Let's do a git remote add origin. Let's paste the URL coolify.git. I'll hit enter. Now, once I do that, now that I have cloned a branch which is there, which was available publicly, right? So as of now, as you can see, there's nothing showing up in here. So if I wish for all of these files to show up here, all I have to do is do a git pull origin master. Origin is the default name for all the remotes. And I also named it here, right? I named it origin over here, so I'm writing origin. Then the main, the branch here is main. Okay, it's not master, so I'm gonna have to name the this main git pull origin main. So as you can see, it's pulling all the code that's available out there onto my main. The code which was in here is now in my system locally. Friends, that's how you make a pull request. That's not how you make a pull request. That's how you pull something out from GitHub. Now let's make a change somewhere in this code. Okay, let's change the readme a bit. Let me close these things. Let's change the readme, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all of this. Never do this. I'm going to delete all of this just for the sake of this tutorial. Since I've made a change, it will automatically show up in here in my version control. Okay, in hello git there has been change to the readme. Yeah, I've deleted everything, so yeah, there has been a change. I'll do a git status, and then I'll do git add. Now, if there are multiple changes, if you wish to add all of those changes at once, what you can do is you can do a git add dot. Now, what a dot does is that it goes through your entire code base. It looks for all the files that have been changed, and it records them. It is the simplest way to record all of those changes. Like you won't have, if you've made changes to like all of these files and you are at the initial state, you can do a git add dot, and you can instead of doing like git add readme and then typing, okay, git add readme.md, doing git add, then what else, typing git add git package.json. You can add you can do a chaining or you can do a dot. If you made multiple changes to this, you can do both of these things. I prefer naming all these files individually, because let's say if you made a change in a certain file and you wish to keep it in one commit and then the change in another file in another commit, then you won't wish to do this, right? So I'll do a git commit now, git commit -m delete readme content. Let's name our commit that. Let's push this commit. Okay. Now, once I push this commit, let's see what happens. Git. I won't be able to push it though, because as of now I'm working on master branch. So I'm going to have to rename my branch to main, because this code is in main branch. So how I'm going to do that? I'm going to have to type git branch -m main. Okay. So now that I've hit return, you'll see that the branch has been changed to main. Yeah, here. Okay, so now I'm going to push this code, git push origin main. Once I hit enter, all of this code that I wrote in here is pushed now. So you want to see a magic trick? Let me show you a magic trick. Ta-da, the readme is gone. So that's what I did. I deleted all of the content which was available in the README just for the sake of telling you how you can contribute to open source. Please never do this. Please add content. Don't remove the entire files, because it can it's really bad. So now that I have made a change, there's a change. I have deleted the README. What I'm going to have to do in order for me to create a pull request is I'll have to do contribute, and then I'll have to do open pull request. This is how you make a pull request in someone else's code. This is how you contribute. Now, there's one thing I did not do. What was that? I did not create a branch in here. Now, this is one of the worst practices when it comes to GitHub and Git version control systems. What I would have done if I would have been doing things correctly is I would have created another branch before I made a change. Now, if I create a pull request right now, and if this pull request gets merged, this would be merged directly to the production. I don't want that. What I want is my code to be there, to be reviewed again and again, and to be tested. But I would obviously be doing that on my own system, but I want it to be done by the reviewers of that code as well, and I don't want it to be done here, right? If I create a pull request right now, um, it would essentially just mean that I'm removing a README and I'm merging it directly to production. I don't want that. What I do want, however, is I want to create another branch right now in my own repository, and then I would want to make changes to that branch, and then I would wish to create a pull request from that branch. Like if I hit another, if there would have been another branch, I would have selected that branch and not main here, because it's a really bad practice to push code directly into the main branch, to the production branch of someone else's code. It's bad in your own code as well, but it's worst when you do it to someone else. I won't be creating a pull request. I don't want to show the maintainers that I've removed their README, but this is how you contribute to open source. Yeah. Now that I have taught you most of the stuff that you need to get started. If you feel that you have any doubt, if you have any confusion, you can ask them in the chat section. However, if you're watching it through YouTube, you can have the YouTube live stream, or LinkedIn, there's LinkedIn comments, or maybe you can reach out to me as well. I'm apm.bio.link. That's me. Other than that, congratulations, you now possess the fundamental level of knowledge for Git and GitHub, and you can actually start implementing this knowledge. If you feel that you have any doubt, any confusion, you can go back to this video, you can go back to all those points that I mentioned and start contributing. Now, on an additional note, you can scan the QR code. There's this really, really awesome Microsoft Learn module that you can follow. It would teach you how you can deploy a web page to GitHub pages. I paced through that thing, right? When I was actually deploying my page, I was a bit quick, and I'm pretty sure that many of you would not get it. So for those who won't, I'll I'll not be opening Arc. I'll be force quitting it. Please don't open. Okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy this link. Let me just do, yeah. I'll be copying this entire link. I'll be pasting it in my address bar, and I'll be showing to you how you can go through this Learn module. Okay, you can sign in or you may not. It's a hour and 12 minutes long module. There are 5 units in it. You'll learn how you can communicate with project communities and issues. There are loads and loads of things you learn once you follow this learning path. Once you follow this module, then this module is a part of many learning paths. The learning path that I like the most is this one: GitHub Fundamentals, Administration Basics, and Product Features. Going through this learning path will teach you everything GitHub. Okay, you learn what is GitHub administration. I think there's an option for GitHub Actions as well. Okay, it's not there. There must be another learning. There must be another learning path for you to learn GitHub Actions. That's an awesome thing as well when it comes to DevOps. So yeah, that's all, folks. Thank you for joining. If you have any questions, okay, I do see a few comments in here. I think I'm not presenting now, am I? Yeah, am I presenting though? Let me check. Okay, no, my video is not up anymore. Awesome. So I'll move on to the comments and see. Yeah. Hey, I wanted to ask what Git phase. What is Git phase? Okay, this is asked by Melon Coding Interview. Okay, Git phase. Can you be more specific about it? Git phase. I don't think I've heard of it earlier. It would be great if you could give more specifics about it. I would really like to get back to you on it. Yeah. Okay, can you tell me the difference between Git, SVN, and Mercury thing? Okay, see, when GitHub was being established, there were these other kinds of systems as well. As of now, Git is the world's favorite version controlling system. But there are other version controlling systems as well. There's SVN, there's Mercurial. They all exist, and you can use any one of them. It basically just depends on your project. It depends on the maintainers, or when the code base was initially written, on the first person that actually worked on your code, or maybe the first coder who actually joined your company. It depends on that person. As of now, Git is the most widely used version control system because of the so many amazing features that it offers. Okay, which is better, Git or GitHub? Okay, so as per me, GitHub command line interface is the best thing out there if you wish to interact with GitHub. There's GH as well. I think the CLI for the official CLI by GitHub, it's there. We do GH, and there are whole lots of operations in there. But Git, as I mentioned earlier, Git is one of the best. So I would rather recommend that you use Git instead of GitHub Desktop, because there are lots of things that you cannot do using GitHub Desktop. Additionally, if you are a beginner though, like if you're just getting started and if you want to get this GitHub thing done, you can use GitHub Desktop for sure, because at the end of the day, your focus should be more on developing solutions, on delivering them, instead of on the tools that you use to accomplish that to accomplish solving that problem. Yeah. So do we have? Can you tell the audience what is a branch? Okay, I think I covered this in my presentation as well. So a branch is essentially just like creating a copy of the default branch and making changes to it. You can have multiple branches. You can refer to the video. You can go back and refer to the video and learn about more about the explanation of branches. What is GHCLI? Okay, so GitHub offers you their own CLI for more advanced operations. Let's say if you wish to work on something which is there on GitHub but it's not covered in Git, like making pull requests. Making you cannot make pull requests using Git CLI. You'll have to use GH for that. So for operations that are exclusively there on GitHub, it's preferred that you use GH as the CLI, but what I showed you today, it's the most widely used method to contribute. What is just okay? So, um, have you used Gmail before? Have you used Hotmail before? Have you used any kind of software which has multiple offerings? The clouds, there are multiple different offerings for cloud, right? So GitHub, there for more graphical user interface based version management system, there are multiple providings for that as well. GitHub Desktop is one, Tower is one. There's Git Kraken as well. There are loads and loads of them available in the market. You use whichever you like. Okay. However, it would be preferred if you use Git CLI. Yeah, you can move on to the next question as well. Do you suggest using conventional commit or Gitmoji? Uh, it's better if you use conventional comments. You can use Gitmoji as well. It totally depends on you. Yeah. Thanks. Thank you. Yeah. If you have any more questions, you can load them onto the screen. Okay, here.
We have covered all the question, I think. And thank you so much, Akshay, for this enlightening session. We had like to extend our heartfelt thanks to Akshay Prabhat Mishra for sharing his expertise and taking us on his incredible journey through Git and GitHub. And thank you once again, and have a wonderful evening.
Again, thank you, Mansi. It was great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.